All right, Coach, you have this strange power. You brought it up. Every time you emphasize something, it happens. And I know you actually, you basically believe when a coach says something and says it enough, it happens. This week you asked for it, you got it. You wanted the deep ball to start clicking, and that's exactly what happened. Other than asking for it, why did it happen?
Well, I think you practice it more. You emphasize it. You study the film more extensively. When you're into individual periods, you throw more deep balls at that time, and you just try to build the confidence of the quarterback, try to build the confidence of the receivers, the rapport of those two groups working together, and then for the play caller to call it, right? And he's got to ultimately call the play, and then guys go out and do it. So I thought it was great for us. I really believe that we've been improving. I've been saying this week in and week out. I feel like we're getting better and better, and that aspect to our game needed to improve for us to become a really complete offensive football team, and it showed up Saturday.
It was a magical first quarter, Coach. The way that you guys played, and the explosion on offense, and all the things that you called for. At what point did you sort of feel that these guys? I mean, was it earlier in the week where you felt that these guys were on track to do that, or did it just sort of develop as the game went on?
Well, the first drive really was a little choppy. If you remember, we get 2 PIs on the drive. I think there's a defensive holding, then a pass interference on Buck on an angle route coming out of the backfield. So it's and then even the first touchdown wasn't how you draw it up. Cody scrambling, making a play, and then boom, Sui gets the interception. Then things I thought really started clicking. We get the 2 interceptions in the first quarter, which it's always great to get really good field position. And then just the flow of the offense and the ball getting spread around. It wasn't just going to one guy. I know Nelson had 3 touchdowns, but Bryce Dixon's catching a couple. Juju's getting his first one. Stephen Mitchell's getting his first one. And Randall Telford catching the ball. It was good for everybody.
Cody's nature seems to be efficiency. I mean, even since the days he got here, he would have Coliseum scrimmages when he was just the backup or even the third string, and he'd go like 11 for 12, but it would be for like 45 yards. And it was just sort of his nature, and he's taken that into his starting role. 18 touchdowns, only 1 interception. How do you find the right balance between that efficiency, which I know you love because you don't like turning the ball over and you like high completion percentage, but also finding that explosiveness where you're making big plays in the passing game as well?
Well, I think the biggest key is for him to understand why we're calling specific plays and what a play is designed for. If we have a double post called and we're trying to beat a quarter's coverage and we get the coverage we're looking for, I want him to let it rip. If it's not the coverage that we want, then it's okay to get to your second, third, fourth, your checkdowns, things of that nature, your reads throughout it all. And the guy that kind of played that way, too, when he was here was Matt Leinart.
Yeah.
Matt was a very efficient guy. He was not afraid to check the ball down. He was, you could say at times, I mean, I remember Pete even commenting, boy, Matt's playing really conservative. We got to get him out of being too conservative. And so there's a fine line there. And I think Cody, again, he's still finding his way, but he took advantage of his opportunity Saturday, which was a great thing. It's going to help us moving forward.
You've been getting steady play from Nelson Aguilar all year long, but there's always been, I guess more of a media thing, the search for the number 2 guy and for somebody to step up. It was Juju, obviously, on Saturday. How important is that, or is it important to have somebody else step up as the number 2 guy, so to speak?
Well, I think it's helpful. I think one thing that has been not seen, but Buck Allen's caught a lot of passes out of the backfield for us right now, and he's been a really good weapon. I think Juju might have just surpassed him maybe as the number 2 receiver on our team stat-wise, but Buck has created some big plays for us on third down and different things. So for me, I love that Juju made a couple really dynamic plays for us. We need it, and he just missed a couple other ones. He's been close. We've been saying as a staff we really feel like he's about ready to break out, and he sure did. But that doesn't take away anything from Darius Rogers. Darius has been playing good football for us. I love it, again, like I said, that the ball got thrown to the tight ends this weekend because that's when we're at our best, when the things are getting spread out and you have to try to cover everybody.
And Stephen Mitchell caught a touchdown pass. I loved his quote today, basically. It was his first career touchdown pass, and he said, no one's ever going to forget it because he caught the record setter. A guy like that, a guy like Bryce Dixon, what do these little added pieces do to your offense?
Well, it's just about developing your team. We have to remember – Stephen had been coming off a couple different injuries here. He had the ACL, he had the sports hernia stuff. So it takes time, and he was chomping at the bit. He wanted to play more, and I was just trying to give him, just be patient, keep working. Your time's going to come, and it will come. I really believe Steven's best days are still ahead of him. I don't think he's anywhere near his potential, but I was very happy for him with the diving touchdown catch. Another guy, Bryce Dixon, really, when you go watch his practice, we were commenting as a staff today, Nelson Aguilar is infectious. He's contagious of how hard he practices. Juju's got it figured out. Now he's going that hard. Bryce Dixon is starting to practice the same way, like a Randall Telfair. I have to tone these guys down, but those younger players that are starting to figure it out, and then they reap the benefits of it with success on Saturday. That makes my job of motivating them on Tuesdays a lot easier. If I work real hard, I can get rewarded for it. And so hopefully we see some of that.
And now none of this happens unless the offensive line does what they're supposed to do. And this line, we're halfway through the season, and you have the number one rusher in the conference in Buck Allen. And I know he'd be the first one to say the offensive line is sort of paving the way. Did you think that this offensive line would be this productive halfway through the season?
Well, I didn't know. We had so many unknowns coming in, and I know you guys were asking me about them before the season. How about Max Turek at center? What about these true freshmen that are playing at guards? I've never seen Zach Banner play football before.
Yeah, I didn't think you could pull it off, by the way.
So there was a lot of unknowns, and I really didn't put a ceiling on these guys, and I haven't yet. We've continued to push them. We've seen the development of Andre Walker getting back into the fold now, where he was really non-existent at the beginning of the year. We still haven't even scratched the surface with Jordan Simmons yet, Khalil Rogers. Yep. So it's a group that we really like now. I have to always kind of think about, 3 years from now, this group's really going to be something special. So I'm proud of the job that Coach Jebdo's done with these guys and development, because we've had some hard days, some hard practices, some hard games where we've seen a lot of defense, but they've continued to improve, and they're going to need to play their best game Saturday night against Utah. This is the best front we'll see in the most hostile environment that we'll be in, so they've got their work cut out for them.
Yeah, defensively, you got back to making some plays, and I thought Daryl Bowman, in this day and age, are like, how can you still hit somebody and have it be legal? And it's almost like you should just edit the Gerald Bowman hit, and that was like the textbook of how it can still be done. Boy, what's he meant to your secondary? This is a guy, there are a lot bigger names coming into the season in that secondary, and he seems to have been, he's sort of the rock back there.
Well, he's really, Kevon, you could say, is a veteran guy, but in Gerald is a veteran in age, hasn't played that much football. Even though he's a senior, his inexperience at playing at this level is a lot like Leon McQuay or a Kevon Seymour. These guys hadn't played a whole lot. But to have, I think the maturity that he has back there is helpful for us with all of the kind of, as I refer to them, the puppies running around trying to cover guys. It's good to have an older guy back there with him.
All right, we'll talk some more defense, and we'll talk about maybe a potential slugfest ahead as the Trojans head into Salt Lake City this weekend. Tonight's highlights are courtesy of 710 ESPN. You are listening to Trojans Live. Once again, tonight's highlights are courtesy of 710 ESPN. We are back at the lab where Trojans Live is brought to you by BMW. See your Southern California BMW Center today for exceptional offers, or visit SoCalBMW.com today. JJ, you wanted to wrap up defense. I was going to ask one more, and it seems like you've gone to these backup defensive linemen in part out of necessity. It seems like they're starting to play a little bit, though. Claude Pilon's made some plays, and Greg Townsend made a couple plays last week.
Yeah, I did. I think Claude has probably played his best 2 games now back-to-back. He had a couple plays against Arizona, the blocked field goal at the end of the first half. Came out, had another nice game Saturday against Colorado. Greg Townsend, I think, had a tackle for loss and a half a sack or something there in the game. And the other guy's Cody Temple. Yep. You don't notice the nose tackle all the time, but he played over 30 plays Saturday. So we're starting to develop the depth that I think is needed for us. Obviously, we've seen the MO teams are trying to use against us when our defense takes the field is to try to wear us out, really have long drives, wear out our defensive front, and then try to take advantage of us in the fourth quarter. So our rotation has to begin earlier in the game, and it was a point of emphasis Saturday, and I thought it worked out really well for us.
Sark, we've talked about Buck Allen being the number 1 rusher in the conference. Well, Devontae Booker is number 2 right behind him for Utah. Why is he having such a successful year? I mean, what makes Devontae Booker in the run game for Utah so tough this year, even compared to years past, because they've never been known as a power-running football team?
He is a very physical runner. I recruited Devontae coming out of high school from Grant High School. He was actually a high school teammate of Shaq Thompson. Very physical, downhill, hard runner. Kind of almost not a lot of care for his own body. I mean, he really runs it in there that hard. And sometimes it doesn't look pretty, especially early in the game. But as the game wears on, all of a sudden those clean tackles become arm tackles, one-arm tackles, and he breaks through them and he creates big plays. We saw that the other night in the Oregon State game. He snapped off the long run there in that game too. So it's going to be really key for us to get him corralled in the backfield at the line of scrimmage, 1, 2, 3 yards downfield, because we don't want the game to turn into our safeties having to tackle Devontae Booker at 7, 8 yards all night, because sooner or later he's going to start to break those tackles.
Yeah, are they a dare you to stop us kind of team? I mean, it's certainly seen that. I watched that same game against Oregon State, and I don't know, they didn't throw for much in the game. They changed quarterbacks at halftime, but it just seemed like over time, fourth quarter running, and as you said, that is the way that a lot of teams have approached playing you guys, knowing, you don't have a whole lot of reserves to go to.
Sure. And for us, when I look at it, the one way to negate that is to get ahead. When you get a lead in the ball game, and then it can kind of slow you down from saying, hey, we're just going to run it. You can force their hand a little bit and make them do something maybe they're not as strong at doing. So starting well Saturday night, I think, will be big for us. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to play 60 minutes. We've learned this in this conference against good teams, especially on the road. We're going to have to play all 4 quarters and sound, hard, tough-nosed football.
The one thing defensively, the game plan has to be pretty big this week because you have 2 quarterbacks that you have to sort of prepare for. Travis Wilson is a 6'7" guy. He's not quite as mobile as the other quarterback, Kendall Thompson. Both of them have some running ability. I know that. But, from a defensive perspective, is it 2 different game plans for 2 different quarterbacks that the players have to get ready for?
Well, I don't think the game plan necessarily is going to change, J-Dave, but it's just like anything. It's the play caller. It's what is Justin going to call based on which quarterback is in the game. Travis, they probably give a little bit more freedom to in the passing game. They call both guys designed runs for the quarterback. What Thompson gives them is kind of the improvisation. When the things aren't there, he'll spin out. He'll go the complete opposite direction. He'll stop and throw the ball back across the field. He's a lot more of a freelancer that way. So that's what we have to coach our guys on, is understanding what type of players on the field, so that they know what to expect. But the types of plays that they're actually running are very similar.
It seemed like after the Boston College game, the offensive line went back to school a little bit, and they've gotten better and better week in and week out since then. Is this sort of the midterm exam? I mean, just statistically, Utah's, at least the pass rush numbers are off the charts. They have a sack and a half average more a game than anybody else in the nation.
Yeah, and what helped them is I think they had 10 against
Hundley.
Against Hundley the other night. So that is their MO. They're willing to go after the quarterback and at times maybe sacrifice some things because of it. So it's a great challenge for us. Nate Orchard's a tremendous pass rusher coming off the edge. They've got good schemes and they're aggressive in their nature. And we're on the road. And, the crowd noise can always be a factor that way. So I think this will be a great test for our guys. I have all the faith in the world. I really felt good about practice today, but we definitely are going to need to play one of our better ball games Saturday night up front.
Most of the time when we talk about offense and defense and players of that sort, we seldomly, if ever, talk about special teams. But in this case, special teams is a big factor because they are very good in the kicking game as well.
Probably the strength of their team, JJ. If you had asked me what is number one, Utah, why do they win? How do they win? Totally special teams. Their returner, Kalen Clay, I think has 3 punt return for touchdowns on the year, 1 kickoff return. The field goal kicker is just phenomenal. I mean, the guy hits from everywhere, and in the altitude there, he's getting even more distance on his field goals. And their punter is a tremendous weapon. He's an Australian kid who does the rugby style, really the rugby style. He can kick it. Most guys, when they roll to their right, the ball only ever goes to their right. This guy can roll right, kick it back left. He reads the returners. He does a really nice job of gaining field position for Utah, and that's their game. They're going to play field position. They're going to run the ball. They're going to play hard-nosed defense. And in the end, if they feel like that's going to be their formula for success.
Yeah, I think they call the kicker Automatic Andy. What's your kicking situation? Obviously, Andre Haidari nursing back from a groin injury. We saw Alex Wood on Saturday. I don't think you've had to kick a field goal in 3 games. So where's your kicking situation?
No, we haven't.
Stand?
What I've been impressed with Alex since he's been in is his kickoffs. He's placing the ball exactly where we want it to go. He's gotten I think the Arizona game, I know he had 3 out of 5 were touchbacks. He had a couple more the other night against Colorado. So we'll have to gauge that as we get closer to it. We'll make a decision on the field goal kicker by Thursday. We'll know exactly what we're doing there, and we'll move forward. But I've all the confidence in the world in both those guys.
The one other thing that, sort of jumps off the page when you look at Utah is, the sacks, the tackles for loss, just the negative plays. How much have you preached to the team this week, and maybe even just Cody, just to try to eliminate those, and that's sort of the big part of having success against their defense.
Right, and I'm, when you play the style of defense that Utah plays, they're going to create some negative plays. That goes without saying. What we have to make sure we're doing is that we create explosive plays because of their aggressiveness. So we might live in a few 2nd and 10s. We might have a few 3rd and longs, maybe more than we've had the last couple of weeks. But in turn, we might have some more chunk plays, which is important for us to get yards and chunks, especially against this defense.
My last one for you was, did you ever plan any BYU-Utah games? What's that rivalry like?
That's a great rivalry. It's a lot like every other rivalry around college football. It divides households. My junior year, they came into our stadium and beat us. It was the worst college game of my career. Threw 4 picks. They were booing me right out of Cougar Stadium. So the very next year, we went up there and beat them in Salt Lake and clinched the conference championship. So, as they say, you're only as good as your last. So I'll hold on to it.
A little more revenge then maybe this week as you take your Trojans into Utah. 7 p.m. start on Fox Sports 1. Speaking of Fox Sports 1, their lead analyst Charles Davis is going to be joining us next as we talk more about this Pac-12 South Showdown. Thanks so much. That was Coach Sark. You're listening to Trojans Live on the Beast.